Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Pujikacharya Ashtotar Dadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Pujikacharya Ashtotar Dadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. I think we're on text 7. 235. Is it not, Marcy? Check it. Suresh? Suresh, open the door. About a foot. Thanks. I'm pretty sure. 7? Yeah, 235? 235, yeah. Okay. 235. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of July, 2019, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 7, entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text number 7, page 235. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Apinalipyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Apinalipyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarva bhutatma bhutatma kovan api na lipyate. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma kovan api na lipyate. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma kovan api na lipyate. Yoga yuktaha, engaged in devotional service. Vishuddha atma, a purified soul. Vijita atma, self-controlled. Jita indriyaha, having conquered the senses. Sarva bhuta, to all living entities. Atma bhuta atma, compassionate. Kurvan api, although engaged in work. Na, never. Lipyate, is entangled. Translation. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Purport. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. And he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reaction of work. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So the subject matter is, as Krishna has been discussing, yoga, sannyas, which in this case means detachment, and breaking free from the bondage of work, of karmic work. That's a continued theme here from the past chapter. Because the preliminary motivation for engaging in yoga and purification and all these things is to break free of the bondage of work, meaning that our present body is the result of our previous activities, and if we act fruitively, selfishly, for sense gratification, we're simply planting the seeds of another material body and continuing our suffering in this world. So, as in many other places in the Bhagavad Gita, this idea of working in such a way that you're not incurring any new karma, but rather you're eliminating all the old karma, this is how we have to try to work. In the fourth chapter, Krishna talks about karma, akarma, and vikarma. You may recall that he's saying we have to understand the difference. And in this context, karma means activities that are fruitive, but are according to the Vedic injunctions. And therefore, while we stay bound in this world, our suffering is diminished, and we may get a better birth, and we may even go to heavenly planets like that. That's karma kanda. Karma kanda means the section of the Vedas that teaches us how to perform all kinds of sacrifices and austerities for getting a better material position in our next life, even to the length of going to heaven. So, but in the present age, that's very rare. Most people who are materially motivated, they don't know much about the Vedic injunctions, and they're sure to perform what is called vikarma. Vikarma is activity that has no reference to the Vedas or law. It's simply different varieties of selfish activity, and is what we commonly call sinful activity. And that's the most dangerous kind of activity, because you're likely to lose your human form of life and undergo extreme suffering, hellish punishments, and so forth. And that's going on everywhere. So that's karma and vikarma. We want to try, if we're going to have to go one or the other, we go with karma. At least stay within the Vedic injunctions. But then there's the ideal, which is akarma. Akarma means not inactivity, but activity that has no material motive, and that eradicates previous karma, so-called good, so-called bad, and paves the way for liberation out of the bondages of birth and death. So the basic problem we have in this world is, first of all, this accrued karma that's keeping us bound, and then all of these unfulfilled desires that we've developed in this life and previous lives that are moving us forward this way and that way. And those unfulfilled desires keep us bound to this world. It's called karma, called Hridaya Granthi. Hridaya is the heart, and Granthi means like knots. And in that heart are all these unfulfilled desires. In the 16th chapter, where Krishna describes extensively the demoniac state of mind, he calls it asha pasha shata bandha. That the demonic person who's far away from saintly life, they're bound with asha means aspirations. It's almost like a long-term series of desires that push you in one. I have an aspiration to get this degree or get this position or whatever. And it's something that informs your life and your activities for some time. It's not just a fleeting desire. So if your body, your heart is filled with those are called asha pasha. Pasha means ropes. So asha pasha, shata means hundreds. Hundreds of these aspirations for material wealth, fame, whatever it may be, baddha, are bound up. The demonic simply know nothing else beside that. Their whole consciousness is filled with those. So that's the danger of cultivating material desires unlimitedly, is that you're just ensuring your bondage to another birth and suffering. So we want to try to cut those. That's why Hridaya Granthi bandhana, our bondage, and we want to kind of chindi or cut them. We're on page 233. 233? 235, text 7, Prabhu. So that's a central motivation or aspiration in the Vedic culture, is to minimize our entanglement in the world, or if we're entangled in the world, to have a program for becoming disentangled. And yoga that's a central part of yoga practice, of every yoga practice. The yogis, who are classical yogis who go off and meditate and so forth, they take kind of a a technical or methodical view of doing that. Okay, there are so many things attracting us here. We'll go off far away to the mountain caves or something, the forest, away from all of the distractions and temptations, and we'll work directly on controlling the mind and the senses with pranayama and the breath. There's some of that described in the 6th chapter. But the problem is that we are, by nature, we're persons. And we also have the tendency to become attracted, and it's natural to be attached. So it's not a question of destroying or diminishing to nil our attachment. It's transferring the attachment, purifying the attachment. And that becomes feasible. We don't have to go away to the forest. In fact, we're encouraged not to go alone. The more the merrier. You come together with 10, 15, 20, 100, 1,000 devotees to chant Hare Krishna and have a big festival like Ratha Yatra, and the material attachments don't even cross your mind. There's too much to do. There's Jagannath, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We're going to serve out the prasadam. There's so much to do over here. Prabhu, please, you know what? And suddenly you're a great yogi, you know, and you're becoming attached to Krishna and the service to Krishna and Krishna's name and Krishna's devotees and everything like that. That's the feasible and dramatic success of this process. Is that anyone from any platform, there's no prerequisite. You know, you don't have to be a born Brahmin. You don't have to know so many mantras. One mantra you can learn. It takes, like 2 minutes. And then you're ready to go. It's just a question of your faith and your willingness to take part in the process. So let's see how this relates to our present verse. So yoga vishuddhatma. The vishuddhatma means a purified soul. So engage in devotional service. Now Prabhupada constantly, this is part why it's Bhagavad Gita as it is, he'll take the word yoga and says, okay, that means ultimately bhakti yoga. Other commentators say, well, there's no bhakti in here, this is just yoga in general. Maybe it's meditative yoga. But ultimately yoga, engaged in yoga, is the way you become a purified soul. Then you can conquer the self. Now this self here doesn't mean, the Atma means different things. It could be body, senses, mind, intelligence in different contexts. So conquering the self here, is self-controlled, means that the impulse of the senses, as Krishna described in the 3rd chapter, the material desire can infect all the elements of our bodies. The senses, the mind, and intelligence can be saturated with desire. I always give the example of like the drug addict who gets involved with alcohol or some kind of drug. So the senses are involved, obviously. And then after some time, the senses are demanding that you drink and you do all these things. It comes to the point where just to feel normal or better, you have to take, it's not a question of getting high anymore, it's just a question of getting to normal so you're functional. In other words, it's a steep slope downward. It's an exaggerated form of sense gratification. So all sense gratification is addictive. If it's pleasurable, that means you want to do it again and again and again. And eventually it becomes troublesome because it's wearing down the senses, especially if it's exaggerated, and it's planting this desire that can never be fulfilled on the material platform. How much can you eat? How much sex can you have? The drugs are going to, we know from experience, there's a limit to that. There's no limit to the spiritual pleasure. You can chant, and the more you chant, the more you like it. If you're chanting purely with concentration, And so you can quickly get addicted to things really spiritual, having relating to Krishna, beginning with the holy name. And that's a good addiction. The only side effects is, liberation, is peacefulness, a general joyous demeanor. In other words, it's all good. The side effects are all good. Whereas the side effects of sense gratification are all bad. The most important and obvious one is take another birth. That's why, what does Rishabdev say in his famous verse? Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma. There's that word vikarma. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya apanoti. He says, certainly, those who are only focused on sense gratification are mad. Mata means mad. Pramata means really mad. Why? Because there's some flickering happiness, but it's sure to bring you another body and great suffering. So sense gratification means a little pleasure involved, and a lot. And the Bhagavatam speaks about it a lot. What does Prahlad say? Kutrashisha shuti sukha mrigatushni rupa. So he's speaking about sense pleasure here, and he says, what is the use of all these aspirations for sense pleasure? Shruti sukha, most of the pleasure is in the anticipation. I'll enjoy this, I'll save up money and I'll buy it. And meanwhile, I'm contemplating how much I'll enjoy it, all my friends have it. So, this is, so it's all kind of a theoretical thing. It's in the mind. Then, okay, if everything is in order, you get the pleasure, and then it's over, comes and goes, and then you remember about it. So the whole thing has the nature of a mrigatrishni. You remember what the mrigatrishna means? Mriga is an animal, especially a deer, and trishna means thirst. That which the animal thirsts after, the deer, a mirage. A mirage. The foolish animal will run out into the desert thinking there's water there or something. So all of this running after this sense gratification, it's just like those deer. We're looking for something, and we may arrive at it, but it's not what we thought, and then it's over, and then all we have left is the longing to do it again, and you're imprisoned. The drug addict. They used to have this phrase when I was growing up in the New York area, which at that time was the center of all heroin addiction in the United States. It probably still is. Thousands of them. You have a monkey on your back. They used to call it. Is that still current? You have a monkey on the back. Telling you got to get it, you got to get it. You got to feed me, feed me. You can imagine how debilitating that is. So Krishna consciousness saves you from all that, because you become addicted to Krishna. That's a good addiction. That's a wholesome addiction. Like this Bhagavad Gita, as Prabhupada points out, you can read it 6 times a day, and you find ever fresh realizations in it. It's not like an ordinary book. And the more that you feel you're serving Krishna, you're close to Krishna. Oh, that's my friend speaking to me. Yes, I'm doing that. I have to work on that one. And it's very illuminating. So Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma, he's describing the pure soul, controls his self, becomes dear to everyone. The ideal is the Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatan, Gopal Bhatta, and Raghunath Bhatta, and Raghunath Das Goswami, and Jiva Goswami. These were the primary disciples of Lord Chaitanya. Jiva Goswami was really a second generation, but and it's described in the first verse, second verse. Nana Shastra Vichara Naikandapano. If you open the Nectar of Devotion, you have all these books now. So in the Nectar of Devotion, this opening page, this verse is stated. It's kind of an introductory verse. Nana Shastra Vichara Naikandapano Saddharma Sangstapako Lokana Mitakarino Tibhavano Manye Sharanyakaro. Is that the verse, or maybe it's the first one? Yeah. Krishnod Kirtana Gana Natana Bado Premamitan Bonadi Dira Dira Jana Priyopiyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujita. So the very first verse, words of this is that Krishna od Kirtana Gana Natana Paro. The word paro, or para, or parayana, means very strongly dedicated to it. Supremely dedicated. Like you can be Narayana, Parayana, very strongly dedicated to Narayana. It's a nice. So they're dedicated and very strongly involved in singing loudly the name of Krishna. Krishna Utkirtana means Sankirtan, sing loudly, and dancing. Krishna Utkirtana Gana, singing, and Nartana, Paro. Premamritambo Nadi, and they're always swimming in an ocean of prema. Dira Dira Jana Priyo, that's pertinent to our verse. They were dear, or they were beloved by those who were self-controlled yogis, as well as the adhira, the ordinary people, maybe not of such good behavior. But they also liked them, because they emanated this love. They had no selfish motive. And Sanatan Goswami especially, he was the elder brother of Rupa, and who regarded him as a spiritual master. He was the leader of all the sannyasis, of all the Goswamis. He would, they lived in Vrindavan, and they would go to different people, and he would give advice. He was a very skilled diplomat, a man of the world. They had been part of the government in Bengal. And so they were wise on all kinds of levels. And he would give people, practical advice, about their family life and so forth, as well as, of course, transcendental advice based on the Shastra. So naturally, he was beloved. He was giving all this good advice. So the point is that they immediately disarmed everybody. If you see someone who's emanating, this pure love of God, and he's very eager to give it to you free of charge, In other words, it immediately disarms you, and you like them. So that's the idea, is that this Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, they were compassionate to all living beings, and so they were very popular. So this is also described here, the self-controlled yogi who's conquered himself. Kurvan up in the lipite. So even though he may do so many things externally, he's really doing nothing. This is the karma I described. So many activities, like Prabhupada was doing so many things. He was never idle. He reluctantly slept a few hours a night. But then he would get up in the middle of the night and dictate, and then when sunrise came, he would preach to the devotees. He would go out traveling here and there. He's always active. But he's nalipyate, not entangled. Krishna says this about himself. I create all of these worlds and everything, but I'm completely unentangled, because he's not doing it for any selfish reason. It's all for us. The creation of this world is for us, to give us a chance to fulfill our silly desires, but at the same time to give us instruction through books like Bhagavad Gita and his representatives who are preaching Bhagavad Gita, so that we can break out of it. In other words, it's a reformatory. We're all in rehab here, and when we recognize that and take advantage of it, then it will be successful. So we want to remain unentangled even though we're in the material world. Being in the material but not of the material world. That's one of the ways of saying it. And that's possible if one is constantly thinking, what I'm doing now is I'm doing for Krishna. There's a verse like that. I think I shared it once. Kayena vacha manasendriyava buddhyatmanava unusatabhavat karodi yadyat sakalam padasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. This is from Bhagavatam 11th canto. The 9 Yogendras, the exalted sons of Rishabdev. They're great yogis, they travel everywhere. And when they see a receptive soul like this King Nimi, they give instructions, and so they're recorded in Bhagavatam. So he's saying, here's the ideal. Whatever you have, he goes through the list. Kayena, your body. Vacha, your words. Mind, manasa, indriya, senses. Your intelligence. Your life air. Whatever you have received these according to your karma, you act with them. It says, Karodi yadyat sakalam padasmai. All of the activities, you say, padasmai na, this is an offering to Narayan. I'm doing this for Narayan. In other words, at every moment, every breath, every step that you're doing, you think, oh, this is actually for, you're linked up. This is a perfect Krishna kindness. Then you're completely free of fear, and you're on the transcendental platform. And that was Prabhupada's, mood everywhere, and he was trying to give us a chance to do it. It's not easy because we're so habituated to acting in other ways and forgetting and being selfishly motivated. But that's pure Krishna consciousness. Every breath, every act, every thought is saturated with devotion for Krishna and action for Krishna. That's what he's talking about here. So now he's going to describe the how one who in this consciousness lives and thinks about everything that he does. So that's the 8 and 9. If there's no questions here on this verse, we can go on. Naiva kinchit karomi ti. That's the name. Yukto manyeta tattvavit. Pashyan shrindran sprishan jigran. Ashnan gachan swapandrasan. Shwasan, Palapan, Visujan, Grinnan, Unmishan, Nimishan Napi, Indriyan, Indriyateshu, Vartanta, Itidariyan. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and the fortune. This is because he's engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in affairs of the senses. Activities such as seeing and hearing are actions of the senses meant for receiving knowledge, whereas moving, speaking, backward, etc., are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna-conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So this sounds like a pretty high platform to reach, where every blink of the eye is, oh, this is the service of Krishna. But I think that we could try to imagine that state if we see how the ordinary state of existence is, whatever you do, it's like the ordinary person, well, what's in it for me? If I'm walking to the bus station, I got to have some mission to go. I'm going shopping, I'm not just walking to the bus station, right? So therefore, if you're conscious, okay, you're the ego, and everything is feeding you. Now, you may also have some relationships, but it all ultimately comes back to you. So similarly, if you're really Krishna conscious, you're really remembering Krishna all the time, and you have a program of trying to serve Krishna's mission, which is given to you through the parampara. Okay, the first thing Krishna wants, what does he want? First, to think of him. Manmana. Okay, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare. But the next thing is bhavamad bhakto, become my devotee. So there's so many things to do, right? There's a whole program of deity worship. There's a whole program of maintaining the temple. So I may be going to work, but I know that a good portion of that salary, whatever I can afford, is going to go for the uptake of keep up the temple. So there's a devotional element to it. And, when I sit down, then comes the difficult part. Well, what am I going to read? What am I going to hear? What am I going to taste? Okay, I'm going to taste only prasadam. I'm going to read only things related to Krishna. I'm going to hear music related to... That means that you have to kind of, vijitendriya, control the senses, because the senses have become attracted to other kinds of things. So that's where the sadhana comes in. I talked about, these 10 roots. There's a book, by the way, I have on my shelf called Dashamula Tattva by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And I can give it to you on your iPad. And he discusses these 10 roots, and he describes them all, and it's really a good book. It's a small book, but he goes through these 10 roots. We can review them again. Why not? So, first of all, the division into the 3 of Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. Sambandha is understanding relationship. We can have an example of it in our ordinary life. Suppose some kid grows up, a lot of my friends, I never had this propensity, want to work on cars. Of course, you want to drive a car as soon as you can, but you also want to work on them. And maybe get a hot rod going or something, So how do you do that? That's your goal. That's your prayojana. I want to become an expert mechanic and be able to fix cars. And have a really nice hot rod so I can get the girls. Okay, that's behind you. So there's a whole mixed thing. But basically, that's my goal. So first of all, I need to get close to a car, right? And I have to be in a situation where I can actually learn how the car works and how to work on the car and all these different things. So that's the sadhana. The sadhana is hanging out with an experienced mechanic who's willing to show me how to fix cars. And if I actually can do that, then I can move toward my goal of becoming a mechanic. So I have the sadhya, or the prayojana, which is the goal. Then I have the activity. But what is the activity? First I have to know the sambandha. What is that? What is that, the old days carburetors and everything, how does that work? This is all sambandha gyan, the energy of the car, right? There's a lot of steel in there, but there's also gas and this and that, water, whatever, It's all much more complicated now than it was when I was growing up. But all that knowledge is necessary for me to become an expert mechanic. And if I follow the process, and I'm a good disciple of Joe the mechanic, then I can also become a good mechanic, and I have my goal. Then maybe I can get a job in mechanic and spend the rest of my life working on cars. In other words, it's ultimately not a very good goal, but the process works in everything. Everything you want to do has a sambandha. What is it that I'm trying to look at? How do I relate? Do I have the qualifications? And how can I engage in some energy, some money here, this and that, in meeting my goal? And then the practice to get to a certain point that I'm reaching it. So when we apply to bhakti, to the ultimate goal of life, which is breaking free of bonds of material world, going back to God and getting free. That's the preliminary goal. There's so many nuances to it. Then I have to understand, where did this world come from? You know, who or what is the absolute truth, which is defined by Vedanta Sutra as the source of everything. The source of everything, and that which maintains everything, and ultimately that which destroys everything. That's Brahman in the Vedic culture. So we understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the supreme Brahman is God, is Krishna, is the supreme person. And what's his name? Hari, or Krishna. His names which have qualities. So Hadamiha Padamam, Sarva Shaktim. He is full of all these different energies, material and spiritual, right? And Rasabdim is an ocean of rasa. He relates to all these loving devotees in unique ways, personal ways. That's rasa, Rasabdim. Who are we? What am I? God is Krishna, he has these energies, relation, and I am part and parcel of God. Bin Anksha. Anksha means a particle, having the same qualities in minute degree, like the drop of ocean water or the sun ray, as to the sun or the ocean. So we have Krishna's qualities, but in minute degree, and because we're so tiny, we can be overwhelmed in Maya. And therefore it says, Tadben Angshangs to Jivan. The Jivan is separated Angshas or part and parcels, Prakritika Validan, and there are a whole bunch of them, of which we're part, who have been swallowed up by Maya. We've been overwhelmed by the external energy, Prakriti Validan. But not to lament, there are also others who are liberated. Prakriti Tadvimuktangs to Bhagavad. So that's who we are. We're the particle of spirit, separated. We're now in the thrall of Maya, overwhelmed, but we can also be liberated. And then one more of the Sambandha side, and that is Beda Beda Prakasham Sakalam Abhihare. Everything, both spiritual and material, is simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme. This is like this inconceivable. That's called a Chintya Beda Beda Tattva. Inconceivably, simultaneously separate from Beda and Abheda, one with. So that as bhaktas, we often emphasize the difference. We don't want to merge with Krishna. So there's Krishna and there's us and we want to serve him. But it's important to remember the oneness also, because that's why serving Krishna is the platform of the highest pleasure, because you're actually serving your true self. When you serve Krishna with love, that Krishna is the self of the self. So you're getting reciprocation from him, and you're on the platform of absolute bliss. And you know, the material world just fades into insignificance. Whatever we can use in the material world to further that service, fine. Otherwise, we couldn't care less. It's just, you know, background noise, rather than full of all kinds of temptations. No more temptations. Your mind is, you know, fixed on that. But that oneness is important, because Krishna's Anandamaya Abhyasad. He's always full of bliss. By nature, he's full of bliss. And we have that nature also, but we've lost it. And so we're trying to find it in matter, and we're becoming frustrated life after life. So when we participate in giving bliss to Krishna, by doing service, even a little thing, a little, you know, patram pushpam, a little flower, a little fruit, anything, but saturated with love and devotion as much as we can bring, then Krishna reciprocates. He gives us inspiration, he gives us the intelligence by which we can come to him. That's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So it's all completely personal. This particular set of verses, it says this is how the self-realized soul lives. You're understanding you're completely separate from the body. You're kind of watching everything go on. You know, this is kind of a detached view. And whatever's going on with the senses, you're seeing it as different from you. You are the soul observing it all. Now, the view of the bhakta is the same, but he's using it as a tool. Just like we have so much paraphernalia here for offering. We have the lamps, we have the incense and everything. Well, you know, they sell incense out in the shops there. You just put it in your home. It's not a devotional thing. But this incense that we're lighting and offering to the Guru, offering to Krishna, is spiritual. It's a vehicle. It's a means by which you can express your devotion. Whatever you bring to it in terms of devotion, that's the benefit you're going to get out. But it gives you the context. Same thing with the lamps. But the most important paraphernalia we have is the sound. The sound is the thing. You know, we have the ear, we have the voice, you know, and when we use those tools to vibrate and hear Krishna's name or any of these transcendental sounds, then we become purified, because Krishna is there personally in that sound. And he favors us. You get so much mercy. And the most favor he gives you is more and more attachment to doing that. You read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This whole book is really built on the mood of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya's preaching and the Sankirtan and like that. And you see to what levels one can be addicted to hearing and chanting about Krishna. You know, it's just like, here's a verse for you from the Bhagavatam, second canto, I think second chapter, last verse. Pabanti ye bhagavata atmanaksatam. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmanaksatam. Katam matam shavanabhutesha sambritam. Punanti ye vishahi vidushitashiyam. Vajanti tatchadana sororohantikam. You can see why the Bhagavatam is said to be such a beautiful book. You know, there's so many nice verses. So here he's saying, this is I think Sutta Goswami speaking, those who drink through the ears of the nectar of Krishna Katha, Bhagavata Atma Katamritam. Katamritam, I can give you a Katashtika later, the slideshow. Katamritam Shravanaputeshu literally means the ear holes, drinking with the vessels of the ears. Sambritam, and is fully satisfied with that. Now, you know, being fully satisfied, but so, and is fully satisfied with drinking that nectar. Then what happens? Punanti, so Pabanti and Punanti. Punanti means to purify. Punanti he vishaya vidushatashiyam. Here's that word asha. Remember I've had asha pasha, shata, the demons are bound by thousands of aspirations, ropes. So this is purifying the poisonous, vishaya vidushata, means contaminated desire for sense gratification. It becomes purified from the heart, cleansed away. Vishaya vidushatashiyam. And then what? Vajanti. So Pabanti, Punanti, Vajanti, they go back to the spiritual world and to a place nearby the lotus feet of Krishna. So the whole thing is cultivating that desire to drink in the nectar. And what do the gopis say in the middle of their prayers for Krishna? You know, in the Rasa dance. I don't think you've read the Krishna book yet. Yeah, the Krishna book. So the 5 chapters of the Rasa dance are like the heart of Krishna's pastimes. You know. So what happens is that Krishna calls them with the flute, you know, into the forest, and they all run out, you know, to meet Krishna. Then he kind of teases them and he says, "Well, it's good that you've come, but it's very dangerous out here. I think you should go back home." And then they say, "What? You know, we came out here. You know, don't speak that way," and like that. Okay, so then they start, you know, kind of wandering around on the bank of the Yamuna, you know, and having a good time. But they become a little proud. The gopis, oh, we have the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality with us. And as soon as they become proud, Krishna disappears. And then suddenly they're left alone. And they're mad in separation, and they start enacting his pastimes, and they're wandering. Finally, they go back to the bank of the Yamuna there. The sunlight is, you know, beautiful off the water. And they sing this song. It's called the Gopi Gita, the separation. And it's about 19 verses. And one of them has become very famous because Lord Chaitanya, it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's quoted. And it's all about this hearing and chanting. So the gopis, you know, they're the ideal hearers and chanters. You know, all day at home, Krishna's out in the forest, you know, and they're separated and they're chanting his glories, and then he comes back and they chant some more. And then when he leaves them permanently, that's all they have left. They're singing his glories forever. So that's basically their association to the sound. So this verse is, Tavakatamatam tapta jivanam kavabadiditam kalmashapaham. Shavanamangalam shimadatam bhuvikananti buddhidajana. So this verse has a lot of meaning for all the preachers. You know, Lord Chaitanya's movement is meant for all preachers. So he says, "My dear Lord," he's separate, but they're addressing him as if he's right in front of them. The nectar talks about you, tapakatamritam. Tapta jivanam, the life and soul of the living entity suffering in this world. Tapta means burning and suffering, you know, all the threefold miseries. So this keeps them alive. In other words, this gives them new hope. Shavanam, tapakatamatam, tapta jivanam, kavabiriditam kalmashap. This is sung by all the great devotional poets. Kavabi are the learned devotees who write and sing these vibrations. Iditam kalmashapaham. And those vibrations themselves wipe away and destroy your sinful reactions. Kalmashapaham. Just by hearing them, you become pious. Shavana Mangalam, very auspicious to hear. Srimad, full of spiritual power. Atatam bhuvaganantaye. Those who are spreading your glories in this world are the greatest munificent welfare workers. They're saying that. It's like, and Lord Chaitanya, he's hearing this spoken by a great king who was his devotee, Prataparuja. And he's singing it, and Lord Chaitanya's in ecstasy. And he gets up and he embraces the king, who he wouldn't even touch before, because a sannyasi doesn't go near a king. You know, that's the whole idea. No women, no king. No. So, but in his ecstasy, he forgets that he's a king, and he gives him a big hug. He says, "You are the most magnificent, because you've enlivened me with these vibrations." You know, it's a wonderful scene. So that's available to all of us. Srila Prabhupada, you know, great effort and struggle, he gave us these books, which are full of Krishna Katha. And just reading them and hearing them and repeating them and, you know, making plays out of them and is where you really get the nectar and the essence of the nectar. And you know, like Vaisheshika Prabhu, you know, he's always saying, well, keep the transcendental vibration going. You know, that I went to Sardinia. I went all the way to Sardinia for a meeting, a BBT meeting. So the first day was no meetings, because not everyone was there. So it turns out there's this little cave system that everyone, you know, a lot of tourists go to. During World War II, a lot of people took refuge in the caves. It's right on the water. You know, the Mediterranean Sea is right there. So you go in, and there's this river coming into the sea. It's very clear. It's not mixing at all with the ocean water, seawater. And so we're in this cave with a bunch of other tourists, you know, and going around, and the guy is speaking in English and telling us about the stalactites and all this stuff. So I'm thinking, all right, what are we in this cave for? But I was with Vaisheshika. So Vaisheshika Prabhu, he was saying, well, tell me some cave pastimes from Krishna Lila, you know. And I kind of drew a blank, you know. So he says, oh, I'll tell you one. Muchakunda. There's this cave, I was just reading it today, where Krishna's, he's in Mathura, and he's killed Kamsa. So Kamsa had these two wives, Prapti and Asti, I think it was Prapti. And they happened to be the daughters of another big demon named Jarasandha. You know the story. And so, you know, so where were they going to go? Their husband is dead, so they went back to the father. They have to find some protection. So that he wasn't happy to get these sons. Now they're widows forever. They can't be married to anyone. So he became, I'm going to kill that Krishna, you know? So he attacks Mathura with thousands and thousands of infantry and big elephants and horses. There's something called an akshauhini. You've heard of the akshahinis. This is like a way of measuring military force in Vedic culture. And so he's got all these elephants and everything. And you know, Krishna hasn't even taken up weapons yet. He's just been the coward boy. You know, whatever demons he killed, he sucked the breast, or he swirled them around, or he choked them. You know, no weapons. But now, he's now known as the son of Vasudeva, so now he's taking on his Kshatriya role. So he calls for these two chariots that come down from heaven, one for Balaram and one for him, and complete with chariot drivers and weapons and everything. And he has a little squad of soldiers that comes out of the city with him, you know. And so all the ladies and all the residents of Mathura are up on the parapets, and they're looking at Krishna and say, oh my God, he's a goner. Here's this huge army that surrounds him, and he's just like this little island, you know. But now he's got this bow and arrow, you know. He starts shooting the arrows, and it's just like a big, you know, supernatural flamethrower, and all the elephants and everybody gets killed. And so the only one left is Jarasandha. There's like this river of blood and everything. So Jarasandha, he's mortified, you know. They don't kill Jarasandha. They arrest him, but then they let him go. You know, which is very, very big insult, you know. So he's kind of depressed. He's saying, oh, I'm just going to go and meditate somewhere. But then he meets his advisors and says, oh, don't worry, it's just an accident, you know, then you can get him next time. So he goes and he makes another attack again and again. He does it for 17 times, and every time is whole. This is one of the reasons Krishna comes, to annihilate the miscreants, you know, so there's a lot of miscreants. So finally, the 18th time he attacks, but there's another demon comes, Yavana, Kali Yavana, with 1 million soldiers, you know. So he's got two coming, this Kali Yavana and then Jarasandha. So Krishna says, what are we going to do, Balaram? If we're busy with Jarasandha, then Kali Yavana is going to take over. With the Kali Yavana and Jarasandha is going to take. So what they do is they run away. They run away. They run away, and Jarasandha says, what's going on? And he goes after him, and they run up into this mountain. And Jarasan's trying to go up, and then they jump off a cliff into a river and then come back. Jarasan thinks they perished, so he goes back to his city. But Kalyavana is still there, but he's an untouchable. He's like lowborn. So Krishna doesn't fight him, and he has a plan. And so he starts running alone. And Kalyavana is trying to catch him. What are you doing, you coward? You're a coward. He doesn't care. He keeps running, up into a mountain, into a cave. He runs into this cave. So Kalyavana comes huffing and puffing. He gets into the cave, and he sees someone sleeping there. And he thinks it's Krishna. And so he thinks, oh, now I got him. So he kicks him. It wasn't Krishna, it was Muchukunda. Muchukunda was a great fighter for the demigods. He was fighting for thousands of years, and they asked him, what boon do you want? All I want to do is sleep. Just let me sleep now. I'm tired. And anyone who wakes me untimely, if I look up and I see them, I'll burn him to ashes with my glance. That was his boon. So he had that boon. So Kalyavana kicks Muchukunda. Mukunda wakes up, looks at him, burns him to ashes. So that's the end of Kalyavana. And then Krishna comes out, and Muchukunda recognizes him, offered these prayers and this whole thing. So that's meanwhile, Vaisheshika was telling me all this pastime. And then I remembered another cave pastime with Haridas Thakur, where he was chanting in a cave, and he was so transcendental. There was this big python in there, and it was so poisonous. The fumes were like, people would come to see him, but they couldn't stay in the cave. And finally, Haridas realized, oh, this isn't a good place for me, because the people who want to see me, they can't. So tomorrow I'll leave. So instead of him leaving, the super soul in the heart of the big python, cobra, he said, well, you should leave the cave. So to everybody's amazement, the big cobra is just slithering out of the cave, showing Haridas Thakur's intimacy with the super soul like that, So that was my little cave pastime. And by that time, we'd finished the tour of the cave. And it became a place of pilgrimage, because of the Krishna Katha. I'll never forget that cave, not because it was, it was a boring cave. I was just walking in here, but now it's got all the Krishna Katha to it. So that's the if you can drink that in all the time and chant it. What was Prabhupada doing? He was just writing his books, and then he would meet with people, more Krishna Katha. Then he would go out and preach, lead a kirtan. It was Krishna Katha from morning to night, and everyone who got trained up, they would also do that. Here, take this book, take this book. They were giving out Krishna Katha, and in this way, the movement is going on. So that takes care of everything. Everything we're just reading in this 5th chapter, all of those qualities you'll enjoy. You'll get liberation from the karma, you'll get attraction, you'll be able to see yourself as separate from the body, you won't be involved with all that. It's all there. Krishna consciousness takes care of all of it. You don't have to worry. And now we come to 8:10. Thanks, you have kind of ranted on. So we're going to have a little interlude in our, I'm going to Toronto tomorrow, I'll be back Monday. We might be able to have a class. I can call you, or email you. You'll hear locally if you're still here. You'll always be here. Even when there's nobody here, he comes, he just sits, and then he goes, right? So we'll try to have a class on Monday if I get back early. But I also have Bhakti Sundar Maharaj coming on Monday, so it's going to be an exciting week. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.